optimal health, financial freedom, finding your life purpose. It's called The Simple Life. I'm just doing it my way.
Welcome to The Simple Life with Gary Collins, your how-to guide for getting your shit together.
This is life. You gotta work on all these till the day you die. The only thing missing is you getting off your butt and doing it.
Hey, Rob, thanks for coming on. You did it as a favor in a way, because I've been teasing this episode. You may not know this, for months. And what happened was I got a little scared and I'm not usually that way. I actually lost some sleep over it. I talked to a lot of people about it because I didn't want to come off as a whiny little baby. And I didn't want it to come off as a hit piece. So what I'm going to do, and this is terrible business, and I don't care. I will not put any of the people's names that we'll talk about today in the title. I will not use it as any SEO. I will not use it to promote. So I won't use any of the names to bring any shine or any light to this episode. Do you think that's fair? I think it is. You won't know that they're in there unless you listen to the episode.
I am amazed that you are afraid of anything. I didn't know that was even possible.
I'm not afraid of it far as backlash. I'm afraid people won't understand the angle I use, because I talk about false prophets in my books. And one of them I've used over the years, because I'm a big health guy, I called it the Oprah effect. And she has literally had millions and millions of people buy her product. She's heavily invested. I believe it was at Weight Watchers. She pumped up the stock and then she fucking dumped it. And, she has never been healthy. I've met her. She was actually nice to me.
She's the one person who was actually nice to you. And look at you, you're on here ripping on her.
Well, she had to. I had a gun and was protecting Nelson Mandela. But she, it's just, she's never been healthy. She's one of the richest people in the world, and she's never been able to maintain a healthy weight. And I'm all, well, why would you get health advice from that person? Don't you want to be the opposite of that? That would be the goal. But part of it is it makes people feel better about themselves, because what they do is they associate and go, oh, she has the same problems I do. No, she has poor self-control. She doesn't have the ability to do it. It has nothing to do with genetics. Trust me. It's none of that. She can't control herself, and she's probably getting the wrong health advice. And she doesn't understand it, because if she understood it, she'd be able to follow it and do it. She doesn't understand it. She's not a health professional. So that's where I kind of started with it, and what spun this off into me losing my mind. I'm glad I didn't hit record, because the day it happened, I almost sat down and hit record, and it would have been a flamethrower of all flamethrowers. And it was when Rogan was interviewing Gupta on his show from CNN, the doctor from CNN, after they basically said he took horse dewormer and lied. And they did. I mean, it was a blatant lie. They pushed out the talking points on ivermectin. And I was like, ugh. And he goes, well, do I have to sue CNN? And he got hard on him for like 5 minutes. And that was the clip. And then it drops. And for me, as a guy who's fought for liberty, believes in liberty and doing the right thing and giving back, I was like, dude, if you don't sue CNN for libel, you're a coward. You're an absolute coward. And it tells me you don't believe in what you say. You just talk in sound bites. That's what you do. You play both sides of the fence. They only listen to what they want to hear. And you know that. And I don't know what your principles are. And my rule is, if I can't figure out what you believe in and what your principles are, I don't need to listen to you. What are you? You're a nothing to me. What's the point? Does that make sense?
Well, it's interesting because sometimes it takes people that are caricatures of what is happening around them to expose that. And I always thought a great example of this was Alex Jones, right? Alex Jones is so blatantly a caricature. And I think in one of the hearings with his wife involving their kids during the divorce, he essentially admitted, hey, I'm playing a character. The problem is a lot of people, because somebody's on television or they're on a podcast or whatever, they don't recognize it, and they get sucked into, hey, these people are end all be alls, when in reality, and you know this, you should always be searching for a wide variety of people to get information from, and then based on that information, form your own conclusion.
Yes. Well, and that's the problem I have is people are looking up to these individuals, and I call it the false prophets. Obviously, that's what I've always used. I've written in my books. This isn't new. I've talked about this for years and years and years because we discussed in our last interview, I've been around a lot of celebrities and seen them in their worst light during protection details. I've seen them be completely, utterly awful human beings and say complete BS. And I've always said that. It's just, you do not get life advice from celebrities. They do not live in your world. Why would you get advice from someone who has no idea how your daily struggles are? They say they have, like, I did this, but you have to look at it from a psychological perspective. These people wanted to be celebrities. They spent a great deal of their younger years playing make-believe, and their whole dream was to go to Hollywood and get paid ridiculous amounts of money for pretending to be someone else and get attention. You have to look at that, and you have to take a deep dive of, how is this person going to help me? All they want is attention, and then they want money, and then attention and money. They would be politicians, but they're too lazy to be politicians. Some of them do become politicians because it's even better. And that's all I'm trying to state with it is you have to take them with a grain of salt. I listen to Rogan's episodes for certain guests. I don't listen to be entertained. I don't listen to hear his dumb comedian friends who are absolutely whack jobs in real life. I don't need to. Some of them I will because I find them entertaining here and there. But I look at him as an education source for me of certain topics and how not to do things at times, if that makes sense as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Rogan because he's arguably the most influential person in all of media now. I know we've talked about this on our Mock and Rob show about, as weird as that is, Joe Rogan probably is the most influential person. The problem is he's also the same guy who voted for Bernie Sanders, and he's the same guy who, despite the fact that the left would take him out in a heartbeat if they could and get away with it, and they've tried on various platforms, he still continues to talk about how great people like Michelle Obama are. So it's a guy who clearly has a lack of awareness in some capacity, even though he's a really good interviewer and he gets a lot of interesting guests. It doesn't mean he's some genius or end all be all based on the fact that he liked Bernie Sanders.
Well, and I think this sounds harsh, but if he didn't have as big of a show as he had, these intellectuals he has on would spit in his face and laugh at him. I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for that, they wouldn't even give the guy 2 minutes of their time. I know these intellectuals. I know how they act and how they think. They would give two craps about Joe Rogan's podcast if it was an everyday podcast. They're there to sell books, to get something across. Some are good, like Malone. He wants to get out there and get this stuff out there. It's the biggest platform. That's great. I'm glad he built this platform where things can get out, but it's so conflicting that I always wonder, I go, is this doing more harm than good with the messaging? Because a lot of people take it as gospel. And it's like a good example prior to him was Bill Maher, who I really liked his show early on. I loved Politically Incorrect. I thought it was a great show. Then he got a little full of himself. Then he realized that if the more controversial he was and the stupider things he said are just way out there, that it got better ratings. And that's what I mean. You're like, that's when the show lost me. And I'm all, well, I don't want that. I want the truth. That's what I want. Give me the truth and don't give me talking points and don't give me this kind of I don't like my mind being manipulated. I don't like it. I don't like when people are doing that to gain ratings and play a game. I don't like it. It pisses me off.
Well, and that's what people need to realize is that these celebrities, a lot of them have a great individual talent or a couple of talents that make them wealthy. I mean, they may be good actors. They may be good podcast hosts. They may be a great, ability to shoot a 3-point jumper or hit a baseball. But it doesn't mean they're brilliant people. It doesn't mean they're better than you. It doesn't mean that you should live your entire life around what these people say. I've always said it's a dangerous thing to have an individual hero. I've always thought the idea of having multiple people that you might consider heroes, because you know what? Every person's a very fallible person. and they have a lot of flaws. And if you put one individual on a pedestal, then when you're invested in them not falling from grace, and you're invested in excusing their shortcomings. And that's not good to do, because you can recognize, I love Bruce Springsteen's music. I think between 1975 and 1985, he wrote 5 of the most important albums ever written, and they're phenomenal. But I also recognize he's turned into a far left radical maniac who I wouldn't take any advice from now. But it doesn't mean I also don't say Born to Run was a freaking awesome album, and he's a hell of a live performer. You can do both, but so many people lift people up on the pedestal, and when they do that, they must defend everything because they're invested in them always being seen in a positive light.
Yeah, and it's about having a filter and getting your information from various sources and being able to discern the people you're getting it from. I've always said this. We learn from our elders. We wouldn't be here without that learning process. That's how humans have evolved and been able to survive. And I've used this example recently. I mean, would you rather get, life advice from Oprah, or would you rather go down the road to Gertrude, who's 80 years old, who put 3 kids through college, her and her husband, who's a plumber, scraped by, have gotten through good times, bad times, been married 50 plus years, and are happy? Who would you rather get your life advice from? Literally, you just got to go down the street and talk to someone. And people just don't do that. They'd rather idol worship and put these people and elevate them to a point where and I think that's why people, between social media and this idol worshiping of these celebrities, that we have a lot of people who think that they're going to be those people or are those people. I have it in my family. It's disturbing to me. They act, I've watched women act like Kim Kardashian, and I go, why would you do that? That is ridiculous. And not just women, guys do it too. I mean, they'll imitate complete idiots. And I just don't understand that thought process of why you want to act like a celebrity, be a celebrity, and get your 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah, you see it a lot in politics too. And I always refer to it as kneeling at the altar of a political party, in which you'll see people walk themselves into mental pretzels to condone whatever the Republicans do or the Democrats do, when in reality, they're both equally evil. But because some people are evil, may not be the right word, they're equally bad. And I have done equal damage in many ways to the country, but yet because people get in their camps of good and bad, they can't accept, hey, the side that I like is doing a lot of things to mess up the country too, because they look at it as like ceding ground in a battle if they admit, hey, my side sucks as well. And thus we get people in corners, wed to political ideologies, who will put themselves in mental pretzels to excuse whatever it is, when the country would be much better off if people were just honest issue by issue and didn't feel the need to defend idiot politicians.